I pulled up to the venue with a stupid grin on my face, the kind you wear when you think you're about to make someone's night. It was my wife's big day, Emily Carter, fresh out of law school, about to start a career she wouldn't stop bragging about. I had spared no expense for this party. The champagne was supposed to flow, the band was supposed to play, and I was going to stand there, proud as hell, watching my wife soak in the applause. Only, when I got there, the place was dark. Locked. Chairs stacked inside like they'd been that way for hours. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd missed a step on a staircase. I thought maybe I had the wrong address, wrong time, something. But no, this was it. I called Emily. She answered on the second ring, voice dripping with a strange mix of surprise and irritation. "Oh, hey, Mark. The party ended 3 hours ago." I blinked, trying to process. "What do you mean it ended? Why didn't you tell me?" There was a pause. A pause too long to be innocent. Then she sighed, almost annoyed. "I guess I didn't want you there." Just like that. No sugarcoating. No pretending. Like I was some stranger who tried to crash her special day. I stood there on the sidewalk, phone still to my ear, with the cold realization creeping up my spine something was deeply, disgustingly wrong. Before I could even ask what the hell she meant, she hung up. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification. Emily had just posted on Instagram. And there it was, a perfectly staged photo of her, champagne glass in hand, sitting close, way too close, to a man I recognized, Daniel Reeves, a smug-faced entrepreneur I'd met once at one of her office events. The caption hit me harder than the photo. "Couldn't have done it without you, Danny. Thank you for sponsoring my education and believing in me every step of the way. Redhard #grateful #future lawyer." Sponsor? Believing in her? No mention of me, the idiot who paid every tuition bill, every textbook, every late-night Uber when she claimed she was studying at the library. My hands shook. Not from sadness. Not yet. From something sharper, colder, the kind of anger that burns so hot it feels like ice. I didn't make a scene. Didn't call. Didn't text. I just walked back to my car, started the engine, and drove home in silence. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd already made up my mind. I opened my laptop, logged into my accounts, and began quietly dismantling everything I'd built for her. The tuition payments? Cancelled. The credit cards in her name? Cut off. But the piece de resistance, my 99% stake in Daniel Reeves' company, worth a cool $166 million, sold instantly. The look on his face when he'd find out? Worth more than the price tag. Minutes later, my phone lit up like a slot machine. 142 missed calls. Emily. Daniel. Unknown numbers. Then, the sound of tires screeching outside. Someone was here. And as the headlights washed over my front door, I knew this night was far from over. I didn't move when the pounding on my door started. 3 rapid bangs, then another 3, harder. The porch light caught her silhouette, Emily, hair a mess, still in her graduation dress, looking like she just sprinted through hell. Behind her, a black SUV idled, and I could make out a figure in the passenger seat. Daniel. She banged again. Mark. Open the damn door. Her voice cracked, not with sadness, but fury. Like I had wronged her. Like I was the one who needed to explain myself. I opened it slowly, leaning against the frame. Party over? I asked, my tone calm enough to make her flinch. Her eyes darted past me, scanning the living room as if expecting to see bags packed. What the hell did you do? I almost laughed. You mean besides paying for your entire law degree and throwing you a party I wasn't invited to? Her jaw tightened. Don't start with your drama. You embarrassed me tonight. I stared at her, the sheer audacity sinking in like poison. Embarrassed you? I showed up to a locked venue that I paid for. And then I got to see you thank your office boyfriend for sponsoring your education. Do you want to try that sentence again, Emily? She rolled her eyes. That same little gesture she used whenever she was cornered. Daniel's just been supportive. You're twisting it into something dirty because you're insecure. Insecure. That word hit like a slap. Supportive? Is that what we're calling hotel receipts and 2 a.m. calls now? Supportive? Her face went pale for a split second before she caught herself. You're insane. You've been paranoid for months. Maybe if you'd been more exciting. I wouldn't have needed. She stopped, biting her lip. But the damage was done. I stepped closer, close enough to see the smudge of lipstick on her collarbone that I knew damn well wasn't mine. Needed what, Emily? She smirked, but it was forced. Forget it. Just tell me you didn't touch the business. Ah, there it was. The real reason she was here. Not for me. Not for us. For him. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. I sold my shares. Every last one. Daniel's little empire? Gone before he even sobered up from your little after-party. She froze, the mask slipping completely. You wouldn't. I shrugged. Check your phone. Her hand shook as she pulled it from her purse, eyes scanning the flood of messages. Each one pulling the color from her face. Then the sound of the SUV door slamming. Heavy footsteps. Daniel stormed up the porch, rage all over his face. You son of a. But I cut him off with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Careful, Daniel. You've already lost more than you can afford tonight. And just like that, I realized something. I wasn't the one bleeding anymore. They were. And it was just the beginning. Daniel stopped just short of the doorway, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles looked ready to split. Emily stepped toward him like I wasn't even there, grabbing his arm as if she could calm him down. Babe, just let me handle this, she muttered, glancing back at me with that fake lawyer-in-training composure she always put on when she knew she was cornered. Handle this? I said, my voice low. You mean spin another lie? Tell me again how I'm insecure? Or how Daniel here is just your supportive colleague? Daniel took a step closer, his voice dripping with that corporate arrogance I'd hated since the day we met. You think you can just walk away with my company like that? You have no idea what you've started. I smiled, because I could see the panic in his eyes even as he tried to play tough. No, Daniel, I know exactly what I've started. And you should have thought about that before you decided to crawl into bed with a married woman who was living off my dime. Emily's face twisted into a glare so sharp it could have cut glass. You're pathetic, Mark. You think this little stunt makes you a man? It just proves why I left you out of the party. You're a control freak who can't stand not being the center of attention. I laughed, and it wasn't a nice laugh. The party you forgot to invite me to, that I paid for, was your little victory lap, wasn't it? Your way of telling the world you traded up. Her eyes narrowed. I did trade up. That hit me. Not because I believed it, but because of how easily she said it. No hesitation. Like she'd rehearsed the line. Daniel smirked, but his hands were still trembling. You're going to regret this, man. I have connections. You think you're untouchable? You just destroyed years of work. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the space between us until we were just a breath apart. Daniel, you've got nothing left to threaten me with. No company. No leverage. And if you think Emily's going to stick around while you're broke, you haven't learned who she really is yet. Emily gasped like I'd just slapped her. You're disgusting. I looked at her, really looked at her. No, Emily. I just finally stopped pretending you were worth saving. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the SUV. She didn't even look back as they walked away, but I could hear the argument starting before the car door shut. Her voice was sharp, accusing. His was defensive, desperate. I watched the taillights disappear into the night, and for the first time in months, I felt light. Not happy, not yet, but unshackled. Then my phone buzzed again. Another flood of missed calls. But this time, one number stood out: my lawyers. And that's when I realized I wasn't finished with them. Not even close. I called my lawyer back before the ringing could even finish. He picked up on the first ring, his tone tight, like he'd already been following the storm that had just hit. "Mark, I saw the news about the sale. Daniel's people are scrambling. You've got them by the throat. Do you want me to go ahead with the asset freezes we discussed?" I didn't even pause. "Do it. Every account, every shell company tied to him. And while you're at it, I want the divorce papers ready by morning. Make sure they leave her with nothing she didn't walk in with." There was a short silence, then a low whistle. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "And make sure the media picks up the sale. I want it loud." When I hung up, the house felt too quiet. My mind kept replaying that smug look on Emily's face, the way she threw the word "traded" up at me like a knife. The memories started pouring in: every night she claimed she was studying late, every weekend trip she said was for networking, every time she came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I'd ignored it. I'd let love blind me because I thought marriage meant trust. What a joke. The quiet didn't last. 20 minutes later, headlights flashed across the windows again. This time it wasn't the SUV. It was a silver sedan, one I recognized instantly: Emily's best friend, Rachel. She came running up to the door like she was on fire. "Mark, you have to stop this," she blurted the second I opened the door. I raised an eyebrow. "Stop what?" "Taking back what's mine." Rachel's eyes darted around, like she was checking to make sure no one had followed her. "She's losing it, Mark. She says you ruined her life. She's talking about going after you legally, saying you sabotaged Daniel's company out of revenge." I laughed so hard I almost doubled over. "That's adorable. And exactly how does she plan to prove that?" "I sold my shares legally. If she thinks being a liar and a cheater is a case, tell her to go ahead and file." Rachel shifted, biting her lip. "She also said she's not done with you. That she has something you don't want the world to see." That made me pause. "What does that mean?" Rachel shook her head. She wouldn't say. "But Mark, I've known her since college. She's dangerous when she's cornered." I leaned against the doorway, processing. Emily was about to play dirty, dirtier than she already had. And if I knew her, she'd try to hit me where it hurt most. "Tell her," I said, my voice cold, "that she just declared war. And wars don't end well for people who underestimate me." Rachel hesitated, then handed me a folded piece of paper. "She wanted you to see this." I opened it. One look at what was printed inside, and my stomach went cold. It wasn't over. It was just getting started. The paper was a grainy still image, clearly from some kind of security camera. It was me stepping out of a hotel elevator at midnight, years ago. The angle was bad, the quality worse, but I wasn't alone. A woman's silhouette was beside me, blurred enough to be unrecognizable, but obvious enough to plant doubt. I looked up at Rachel. "She's really going there?" "She said if you don't undo the sale and give Daniel back control, she'll make sure everyone sees it," Rachel said, her voice almost apologetic. "She's banking on people believing whatever story she attaches to it." I tossed the paper onto the coffee table. "Let her. I'm done playing defense." Rachel stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. "You don't get it, Mark. Emily doesn't care if it's true or not. She just wants to burn you down with her." I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and downed it in one gulp. My mind was already spinning through scenarios, every possible counterstrike. "Then I'll burn her first." Rachel hesitated, then lowered her voice. "She's staying at Daniel's penthouse. But she's keeping some things in a storage unit off 9th Street. Private things. If you really want leverage." I turned to face her fully. "You're telling me to break into her storage?" "I'm telling you," Rachel said, "that whatever's in there, she wouldn't want anyone else to see. And if she's threatening you, maybe it's time she learned what it feels like. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. By the time Rachel left, I had the address memorized. I grabbed my jacket, my gloves, and headed for the garage. The night air was heavy, almost electric, like it knew what was coming. The storage facility was quiet when I pulled in. A single security guard sat in a booth, too busy scrolling on his phone to notice me walking past. I knew Emily's unit number before I even got to the elevator. Rachel had written it on the back of the photo. When I slid the lock open and lifted the door, I froze. Inside, stacked neatly against the walls, were boxes labeled in her handwriting: Daniel, personal, bills, confidential, 2019 Vegas trip, law school photos. And in the center, sitting on top of a trunk, was a small black safe. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. I didn't know what was inside, but I knew one thing: once I opened it, there'd be no going back. I reached for the safe, and somewhere in the darkness behind me, a voice said, "Didn't expect to see you here, Mark." I turned, and my blood went cold. Daniel was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, like he'd been waiting for me. He wasn't smiling this time, his face was tight, jaw clenched, eyes burning. "You're really making this worse for yourself," he said, stepping inside and letting the metal door rattle shut behind him. I kept my hand on the safe. "If you were smart, you'd turn around and leave. Now." He let out a low laugh, but there was nothing amused about it. "You think you can ruin me, take my company, humiliate me in front of my investors, and just walk away? Funny," I said, "that you didn't mention sleeping with my wife in that list." That hit him. He shifted, but kept his tone cool. "Emily's not the woman you think she is. She was already done with you before I came into the picture." I took a slow step toward him, the space between us thick with tension. "And you thought that made it okay to take what wasn't yours?" He smirked. "Everything's for the taking if you're willing to go far enough." I didn't even realize I'd moved until my hand was gripping the front of his jacket, shoving him against the wall. The shells rattled. "You have no idea how far I'm willing to go." His eyes flicked toward the safe. "So that's what you're here for? Emily's little secrets? You think that'll save you?" "I don't need saving," I said. "I need leverage. And you just confirmed this is exactly where I'll find it." Before he could react, I stepped back and yanked the safe into my arms. It was heavier than I expected, but adrenaline made it manageable. I started toward the door. That's when Daniel lunged, grabbing my shoulder. "You're not walking out of here with that." I spun, slamming my elbow into his ribs. He grunted, stumbling back, and I used the opening to slip out into the hall. The elevator was too far. I went straight for the stairwell, the safe clutched tight against me. Footsteps thundered behind me. Daniel was following. I hit the bottom floor and burst out into the night air, running to my car like every second mattered. I tossed the safe into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw him emerge from the building, doubled over and gasping, but still glaring at me like this wasn't over. And deep down, I knew he was right. It wasn't. I drove straight home without stopping, my grip locked on the steering wheel, the safe sitting beside me like a ticking bomb. Every red light felt like an invitation for Daniel to catch up, so I ran 2 of them without thinking. By the time I pulled into my garage, my chest was tight, my mind buzzing with one thought: whatever was inside this thing had better be worth the war it was about to unleash. I dragged it into the kitchen and set it on the table. No key. No combination. Figures. I grabbed a crowbar from the toolbox in the garage and wedged it under the lid, putting every ounce of strength into it until the lock snapped with a metallic pop. The lid creaked open. Inside, stacked in neat manila folders, was a treasure chest of filth. Photos. Receipts. Copies of emails. All meticulously labeled in Emily's handwriting. And not just dirt on me, this was dirt on everyone. Judges she'd clerked for. Professors from law school. Politicians Daniel had done business with. Every folder was a potential career-ending bomb. And then I saw it, a flash drive in a small velvet pouch. I plugged it into my laptop, and the screen filled with video thumbnails. I clicked one. Emily, in a hotel room I didn't recognize, laughing into the camera, with Daniel. Another file, Emily with a man I'd never seen. Then another. And another. None of them could be mistaken for just studying late. I leaned back, letting the disgust settle in. She wasn't just cheating. She'd been recording it. Storing it. Maybe for leverage. Maybe for her own twisted satisfaction. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mark, Emily's voice said, low and controlled, I'm going to give you one chance to put that safe back where you found it. I didn't speak. You don't know what you're messing with, she continued. Those files aren't just about me. You open the wrong one, and you'll have more enemies than you can count. People who will make sure you disappear. I glanced at the folders. She wasn't bluffing, there were names in here that didn't belong anywhere near scandal. Finally, I said, Emily, you just gave me the confirmation I needed. This isn't just about us anymore. You've been playing with fire for years. Her tone sharpened. And you think you can control the blaze? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. No. But I can make sure you burn first. There was a pause. Then she hung up. And less than 2 minutes later, I heard tires screech outside my house. I moved to the front window, peering through the blinds. The black SUV was back, but this time it wasn't just Emily and Daniel. 2 other men got out, sharp suits, hard faces, the kind of guys who didn't come to talk. Emily stepped out last, a smug smirk plastered on her face, like she already knew she'd won. I opened the door before they could knock. You brought backup, I said. Cute. One of the suits stepped forward. We're here for what doesn't belong to you. I tilted my head. You mean the safe full of evidence that could end all your careers? Emily's smile faltered for just a second. Mark, don't do this. Hand it over, and we can make this disappear. You walk away clean. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me so they couldn't see where the safe was. Clean? You've humiliated me in public, lied for years, drained me financially, and now you want me to help you bury your mess? No. Daniel shifted, his voice low and tight. This isn't a negotiation. Good, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. Because I already sent copies of everything to 3 different encrypted drives, each set to forward to the press if I don't check in every 12 hours. So if you touch me, or try anything cute, congratulations, your lives go up in flames. Emily's smirk was gone now. Her eyes were pure venom. You think you've won? I stepped closer, close enough for her to see I meant every word. I didn't win, Emily. I just made sure you lost. For a long moment, no one moved. Then one of the suits put a hand on her arm, murmured something, and they all turned back toward the SUV. She looked over her shoulder at me one last time, her gaze promising this wasn't finished. But I knew it was. I watched them drive away, the night finally settling quiet around me. Inside, the safe sat open on the kitchen table, its contents spread out like a map of just how rotten she'd been from the start. I poured myself a drink and sat down, letting the reality sink in. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I felt free. If I learned anything, it's this: the moment someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And never, ever give them the chance to hurt you twice.